For many years, criminals have been paying their fines based on their intensity of crime. And many of the criminals couldn't pay it because they were poor and they didn't have enough money. And then the poor criminals can suffer because they will be out of money and they can even go to poverty too. And our new law can change everything way better than before. And our law will hugely change the life of criminals that don't have enough money to pay the fines for the criminals. They did by giving them another chance. And now two arguments as prime minister. First, ability to pay. Second, equitable justice. And I'll move on to my first point: ability to pay. One of the primary principles of justice is that punishment should be made with the individual's ability to pay. Forcing individuals to pay fines that they cannot afford may lead to further financial hardship or even carry a circle of poverty. And setting fines to income ensures that individuals are not unduly burdened by financial penalties beyond their means. And second, in the current system, individuals with different income levels will be able to receive the same fine from the same crime, despite their vastly different financial income. And this creates a disparity in the impact of the punishment. By basing fines on income, the justice system acknowledges these disparities and seeks to mitigate them, ensuring that the punishment aligns more closely with each individual's financial situation. And finally, punishments that are excessively burdensome can find the individual's ability to reintegrate into society and move past their offense. By setting fines based on income, the justice system can focus on rehabilitation rather than punitive measures alone. And this approach recognizes that individuals are more likely to successfully reintegrate when they are not overwhelmed by the financial obligations that they cannot meet. And second, equitable justice. Under the current system, a fixed fine can have vastly different impacts on individuals depending on their financial situation. And for a wealthy individual, the fine depending on their financial situation, and for a wealthy individual, the fine may be a mere inconvenience, and while for someone with a lower income, it could represent a significant portion of their earnings or savings. By tying fines to income, the punishment becomes more proportionate to each individual's ability to pay, ensuring that the financial burden is distributed fairly. And if we set a law that makes the criminals fine based on their income, it'll make it much more equitable for all of the criminals. And such, why are these important? Of course, the equitable justice is important because our government society should be equal, and the and making people not suffering by poverty and living a happy life is one of the most important things in society. So in summary, I propose two arguments, which is the ability to pay and second, equitable justice. And for this reason, part to propose.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you really want to live in a world where everybody creates crimes? Hello, I'm the leader of opposition side, and our side deeply disagrees with the motion. Today, I'm going to talk about how it's unfair to other people, how there will be even more crimes if punishment is on how rich they are. Now, before I start speaking of very important matters, I would like to rebut what the previous speaker has said. The previous speaker has said that the individuals wouldn't pay because it will be a happy matter and that they will not have the ability to pay. But where does the ability of pay come from? Because this motion is about how they will cause fines on how much they have, how much money they have. However, the ability of pay does not come from the motion. It looks like they even read the motion. And to make the motion clear again, today the motion is this House would set the cost of fines based on the criminal's income rather than the severity of the crime. The previous speaker also said that is a very heavy thing for the individuals, and it have a really big and heavy impact. But why? But if they do have a very heavy and really big impact, it's what they already did, and eye to an eye to serve Jews. They have to they have to do they have to experience the same thing as what they did. Now, moving on to my first argument. My first argument is that it's very unfair to other people. Like now, let's say that one person murdered another person, and let's say that the person is A. And now another person stole, and now let's say that the person's name is B. However, if B has more money than A, it means that they should even pay more than A, even though they have a much smaller thing they did, and they have a much smaller crime, which means that it's totally unfair and is wrong in the name of justice. Now, which means that if, let's say, somebody created crime, but they have less money, then they will not have to pay, which is totally unfair to the people who have created really small crimes but need to pay a lot of money. Now, moving on to my second argument. My second argument is to deal with even more crimes if the punishment is based on how rich they are. Now, let's say that the world is how a government side argues. Now, let's say that a person actually stole something, but they're really poor, so they won't. So the policeman will not make him pay fines because he or she is very, very poor. But now, if other people know that, and if other poor people actually know that, they'll spread the word and keep on creating crimes, which is a very bad thing for our society. And that's why our side is true about how. That's why our side believes that the fines should be based on the severity of the crime, not the income, because it will actually create more crimes and it'll be a very bad thing for our society. Thank you.
Our honorable judge, opposition is saying that we should make everybody pay their funds, but in the severity of the crime rather than their income. They're making everyone pay the amount they did, not caring for the background and the current situation for the criminals are having. In this debate, I'll be explaining why we should set the cost of fines based on the criminal's income rather than the severity of the crime. Before that, rebuttals. So the Prime Minister has told us that why does not having the ability to pay come from is not like related to the topic, and why what did they did is what did they did and they get to pay. However, some criminals do some crime stuff because they're like in a poor situation and they have bad situation going on, which is sometimes not even their fault, but they're innocently having these problems. So we should so we should understand their situation that they can't able to pay and sometimes do that. Also, the Prime Minister told us that it's unfair to other people because even though you did a small thing and people then like they need to pay a lot, but if you're rich, but if you're like poor, then you don't need to pay. However, I don't think that the opposition knows a thing because actually the motion is about that the criminals based on criminals' income. So like that doesn't mean they go to like have a free pass and like go on. It's like they still need to pay, but they will just have like less or more payments depending on their crime. And the Prime Minister also told us that there's crime in criminals will increase. However, and it's actually the criminals will increase if we do based on the severity of crime, and which will be discussed in my argument. And moving on to my argument, our team's last argument is that making the cost of fines based on their income reduces inequality. So criminals don't do crimes are just fun unless they're kind of like weird. They usually need money or other things because of their situation. If these people need to pay, that means they usually do this stuff because they don't have money, but making them pay is even a worse thing. They're probably robbed because they're poor and the government is not protecting them and they can't earn money easily, which means their only option was to steal. And if they make the criminals pay a lot, they could potentially make the criminals repeat its crime, especially when they know they can't afford it, which makes it even worse for the society. It's unfair that you make people who don't have any money pay money. We are not caring about their backgrounds and situation, which is clearly unfair for the criminals and being mean to them. And this could create a society with more and more criminals, which is not a good society. So a solution is this: we input this law. We can make people who don't have a lot of money don't pay a lot of money, which makes more money, and which people with more money could pay more money. With this, we can show equity, and by letting everyone pay the amount they can, rather than the paying amount based on what they did. For example, a poor man stole a lot of money from the bank. He earns like $10 per day. However, if they ask him to pay an amount he could never even think of, is this fair? So so to describe, if $100 fine is a very not expensive for a rich person like Elon Musk, he can like it's like not even close to like his budget. However, $100 for a low income like a poor person is a lot. They need to like earn money, like they might even need to go to jail because they can't even pay. But if we make him pay a right amount for his $10 income, it's a reasonable amount and is beneficial for the criminals and the society and everyone else. So in conclusion, we should rather set the cost of the fine based on the criminal's income rather than the severity of the crime, and that's why we take this debate home. And thank you.
The previous speaker said that that the criminals will pay fine, but the people commit they said pay fine, but I think they're talking about fine. They said people commit crime because of money, and but poor people on your side then will be more likely to commit crime other than money. Why? Criminals are people who are depressed. They are living in a very bad environment. In government world where they pay based on income, they are more likely to commit crime that they don't relate to income. Moving on to my argument. I think we should set the cost of fines based on the severity of the crime rather than the criminal's income, because it is unfair for the victim or the family of the victim. For example, your family is being punched or getting hurt by a poor person. If the opposition side won, then the person who committed the crime will be punished a lot because he is paying the same amount of punishment as the crime. But if the government side won, then the poor person who committed the crime will get a little punishment and will be done. This is not fair for the victims. Why would we choose government side when opposition is clearly a better option for the fairness of the victims? That is why I think we should set the cost fines based on the severity of the crime rather than the criminal's income. Thank you.
During the last multiple decades, criminals paid fines based on the severity of crimes. Although some were able to pay the fines, most of them failed to do so. However, our new act will change, as it will change the standard and make the world more equitable. With our new act changing the lives of criminals and as well as the poor, the act will have a huge impact on our world. With this being said, I'll move on to the clarifications, which I will describe why laws and why we created laws and how it works. Laws are created by congressmen who are qualified members of Congress, in which they have degrees regarding politics. Here they vote whether laws should be created or not. They prefer the one better for the citizens. For example, the Constitution is a famous example in which congressmen created to maintain the stability of our society. Although you may be wondering why should we keep laws, we have things called social contracts, in which you keep the contract for your freedom. If you don't follow the social contract though, you become people referred to as criminals, in which the governments don't really give you freedom. Here, two main things exist: fines, and sentences. While fines give much less punishment by making the offenders pay and still have freedom, sentences make you go to jail in which you don't have freedom. However, if you can't afford the fines, you'll go to jail, removing the freedom you have. Here, over half of people can't afford to pay, which just shows how problematic it is. But this will be a thing of the past if we implement this new act, which will not only reduce inequality, it will make justice equitable, just like how our speaker said. With this being said, I would like to move on to my crashes. The leader of opposition's second speech, there was major flaws when the leader of opposition stated that when we implement this act, people will feel warned. Here, the leader of opposition makes a fatal mistake by not thinking about the core and survival crimes. And clearly, our argument supports it, as the third argument states that criminals don't do crimes for fun. They usually need money or other things. Not only does this argument clearly rebut against the opposition, it raises the question if the opposition is clearly making an argument about the motion. Here, the opposition makes an argument that is not relevant, as we're talking and citing about like the fines based on the criminal's income and not more criminal crimes getting out of that. This just shows how the opposition is far more inferior and how we're superior. Not only that, even though this motion is not talking about making the criminal prison sentences, and it is rather talking about the fines, like not noticing the red light and etc., the opposition stated that it is unfair for the victim, which is outrageous. Since we're just talking about minor offenses like survival crimes and then not following traffic rules, and there is no victim, and if there was, people would go to prison. With this being evident, the opposition is clearly lousy. We take this debate home by winning 100 times and over. Thank you.
Do you want to live in a world where it is unjust and crimes by poor people rule? Do you want to live in a world where crimes get unsolved and people get hurt a lot? Where your family members get hurt severely and no people even thinks a tiny bit about helping them? Judge, do you want all of this to happen to your family members and everyone else? Judge, could you really tolerate these such actions opposed by the government side? If you agree with the government and let them win, all of those things will happen to you in the world. The PM of opposition said that the opposition should give the criminals a chance. This is outrageous. A lot of criminals came to prison for the second time. Do you still think that we should give them a third chance? Law is created in a way where everyone obeyed equally. You should not be punished less just because we have less income. People don't think law is fair. People will less be likely to follow the law. The PM of government stated clearly that it is very unfair for poor people it is to not pay. But the PM of government didn't rebut the PM of OP clearly and just stated that people will earn money from stealing. And also, the whip speaker of OP said that people not being to pay the fees are not right. But it's their own fault they did the crime, isn't it? Not ours. It's their own decision to do the crime.
With the
and their own
information.
behalf, and their own benefit or their own not benefit that they did the crime. Why do we win the debate? On opposition side, our side, where the situation, poor people might commit crime because they're poor. But in government, poor people would be more likely to commit crimes because of hatred. But what our DLO rebutted, that on government side, people will commit severe crimes because they're poor. We can solve this issue and help poor people's issues by giving them more money, giving them more help. But it will be much more harder to stop people from hurting others on your side. On your side, where the punishment is based on the income rather than the severity. Thank you. And today I'm going to point out the most important things of this debate and why our team won this debate. First of all, the most important things of this debate and the things that all of us mostly talked about was how to punish and crime. Now, for the first thing, government side just say that they will just fix crime by giving them income, which means that they will poor people by saying that poor people sometimes won't be able to play, so that will actually solve the problem. But however, our side has clearly stated that if there will be less crime if we give our money, we give a fine on the severity of the crime, because the severity of it, people will be scared more and they would not cause more crimes. And that's why our team won that point. Now, the second point, how to punish. Now, the government side just simply ran away from this by just saying that they'll just give out income so poor people will not be able to pay. But our side also, for this point, also has clearly stated that we'll just let them go to jail or have them in cells if they won't be able to play, and that's a much better solution. So our team won that point. Now, for the summary of the debate, the PM of government side has stated that individuals will not pay because poor people will have less money. But how is that actually stating which crime? However, our side's PM already has said that it's actually bad for society and that they'll actually let them do it, and how it's very unfair to other people, and how our side will have a really great impact on our society. However, the PM has just simply rebutted this and has not rebutted any single point from our side by just saying that where does fund come from? Well, they didn't even read the motion properly. They're not even thinking about the motion, and that's why our side also won that point. And now that is why our side should take this debate home with us. Thank you.
As the reply speaker, I will first point out the strength and weakness of the two teams. First, the proposition was able to clearly propose why it's unfair for criminals and unfair for the rich and poor gap. It's unfair because rich people pay a little compared to their money and poor people pay a lot compared to their income, which is not a fair world. In contrast, the opposition was unable to clearly explain why criminals would increase because they got scared of the big funds they need to pay. Why is it not fair for people? Because even though rich people did a little crime and poor people, yeah, they didn't clearly explain it well. Also, in the middle of the debate, there were some wrong infos of rebutting infos that we said that we didn't say came out. Yeah. Now I'll move on to the world comparison. So in this debate, there are mainly two stakeholders. The first stakeholder is a criminal, and under their team, criminals are suffering and are being sad because they need to pay a lot of money, even though they're poor. But rich people can play a bit compared to their income. It makes the world unfair for the opposition, and where poor people is being suffered. Under our team, criminals will live a better time because they can pay the amount they can afford it, and they'll rather not do crimes anymore because And the second stakeholder is the criminal's family. Under their team, the criminal's family will suffer because they're also affected by the punishment, and they might need to also help the criminal pay. And they're not even they didn't even do anything bad, which is also bad for the criminal's family. But however, in our world, the criminal's family is not suffering, and they're living a better life because they don't need to be affected by the things criminals did, because the criminal doesn't need to pay a lot of money depending on the crime, but rather on their income. So it's a better world. And I'll end my speech. Thank you.